The St. Louis John Doe, 1994. Identified as Stephen Robert Asplund. Stephen Asplund was 32 and he was living in Moline, Illinois. He had been working as a local tool and die maker, and he was in the middle of a huge home improvement project. He was last seen at a friend's house on 4th Street and 20th Avenue in Moline. He'd gone to a friend's house that evening to borrow a caulking gun. It was something that he needed for a repair at his house and had to have that night. His friend would later report to the police that he left there at about 7:30 p.m. after he'd picked up the tool. That was the last time anyone ever saw him alive. His fiancée was worried and she sat at home waiting for him. He was supposed to be gone just a short time. He'd told her he'd be right back. When he didn't return, she waited until 6 a.m. the next day before sounding the alarm. She then began searching in a panic to see if she could find where he went. It wasn't like him to disappear, and she and those around her searched for days. His vehicle was found 7 days later by the authorities. He had a 1987 Ford Mustang, and it was sitting in the parking lot at the 13th Street landing, at the base of the Interstate 74 bridge in Bettendorf, Iowa. There was no sign of Steve anywhere. The police did a full forensic workup on his vehicle, but the tests were inconclusive as to whether he drove it there himself or if somebody else did. 6 months later, in August of 1994, his medical insurance card was located sitting on the railing of a footbridge at Loud Thunder Forest Preserve in Rock Island, Illinois. They believe the card was deliberately set on the rail. Though it's unknown if it was by him, it's possible it was found by a passerby who placed it there. They were unsure if it was even related to the day he went missing. He could have lost it at any point. The best I can tell, the area where his vehicle was found is about 25 miles away from where the insurance card was located. The I-74 bridge on Interstate 74 appears to be located between Bettendorf, Iowa, and Moline, Illinois, where he was last seen. I have such a hard time with the geographic locations, especially in areas I've never even been anywhere near. So if anyone has anything else to add to that, please comment below. It's noted that they searched the river below. Either way, they found no clues as to whether or not the card was related to the day of his disappearance. The case, however, had one possible witness attached, although it's not clear how or why. He's described as a bearded male with a tattoo of the letters HR on the back of his left hand, and he was wearing a Green Bay Packers jacket that night. They kept looking for him, and eventually he was identified in January of 2014. But he hasn't ever been named, and there is no explanation at all explaining why this was released publicly in the first place, or if anything came from it. Both the authorities and his brother have long believed foul play was involved, or at least at the time. Steve nor anyone else touched the money in his account, nor were his credit cards ever used. We know now that his remains were found 250 miles away from his home in Moline. At the time, a man was found floating in the Mississippi River in St. Louis, Missouri. They believe he'd been there about a month at least, and his remains were found 71 days after Steve went missing. But it would take 28 years before DNA would identify them as that of Steve Asplund. His fiancée and his family finally know what happened, although they still don't know why. While it's known that he had a heart condition, it's unknown if that played a part in his death, and no cause of death was ever determined. His family long believed foul play, although there's no statement as to whether or not this belief has changed. The police, for their part, have ruled it accidental, although no one has been able to explain why the man went to borrow a caulking gun that he needed that night and then ended up in the river. Had he planned to take his own life? It's pretty unusual. According to the police, however, they do believe he entered the water of his own volition, for some unknown reason, near the Interstate 74 bridge in Bettendorf, Iowa. They believe he became entangled in a barge and was dragged downriver. His family has released a statement thanking the police and those in the community that searched for Steve 28 years ago as well as the St. Louis County Medical Examiner's Office that took care of him when his family couldn't be there. Steve Asplund was 32 when he went missing. Had he lived, he'd be 60 today. Steve went unidentified for 28 years. The Summit County John Doe, identified as Jeffery Lee Peterson. A group of hikers were enjoying the White National Forest in Colorado in 2016, which is a hugely popular forest near Glenwood Springs, Colorado. It takes up nearly 2 million acres. The hikers were in an area called Sky Chutes. At this time, one of the hikers noticed a skull. A search was conducted, and the authorities managed to discover belongings and the remaining skeleton on August 3, 2016. They believed he was a smoker with strawberry blonde hair. He appeared to be well acquainted with the outdoors. He had yak tracks, for instance, which, if they're like the ones I own, they're stretchy metal that go over your shoes. They help you grip the ground, even on ice. He had a Leatherman tool, a blue Life is Good hat, a Garmin GPS for finding his way around, bear spray, and wire glasses. He also had some Blistex with him that was manufactured in 2012. It was for this reason they believed this was the year he passed away. He had with him a Glock, but its serial number was filed off. It would take 6 years, but the DNA Doe Project, along with the help of the University of Northern Texas Center for Human Identification, solved the mystery on December 12, 2022, announcing that Summit Doe was, in fact, a man named Jeffery Peterson. Jeff was 53 the last time he was seen. They had a lot of trouble tracing his family tree. They knew he was of Scandinavian descent, but the closest match was pretty far removed. So this might be a good time to mention that in the description of all of my newer videos, there's a link explaining step-by-step how you can help with identifying DNA and upload to the various projects that allow these searches. If you're interested, there's chapter links in the portion that would help you. As for Jeff Peterson, the goal is normally to find 2 matches that are reasonably close to the John Doe, so that they can triangulate from there to locate a common ancestor and discover who the missing person was. Using online platforms like GEDmatch, and now Family Tree DNA is being used a lot more, but people have to opt in for searching. There are many cases currently in process that are on hold waiting for new DNA to be uploaded. In this case, they were thankfully able to finally identify Jeffery after 2 years of trying. It turns out that Jeff had a hard childhood, and he had some mental health difficulties. He was a smart guy who graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in industrial engineering and operations research. He would go on to work as an executive at Management System Laboratories at Virginia Tech. He had worked there for many years, and he succeeded in the development of e-commerce software. Unfortunately for Jeff, things didn't continue going really well. It was the financial crisis in 2008 when the housing bubble burst that Jeff would find himself devastated financially. He struggled emotionally in the face of all of his money problems, and at some point he told his family he was moving to Belize, and he told them that they would never hear from him again. He sold all of his belongings, and he never contacted anyone again after May of 2012. We know now that he instead went to the area of Summit County, where he took his own life. It's noted that in a strange way it was a fitting area for Jeff, as he loved the mountains of Colorado. He would often drive his RV to Summit County to camp. He spent a lot of time hiking and skiing in that very area. Jeff was 53 when he took his own life. Jeffery Lee Peterson went unidentified for 6 years. He was 53 when he went missing. The Norman, Oklahoma Jane Doe, identified as Angela Mason. On August 31st, 2008, a fisherman found a shallow grave located at 120th Avenue Northeast and Almeida Drive in Norman, Oklahoma. At the time she was found, the medical examiner believed she'd been there between 3 and 15 months. Despite being there a while, they were able to identify a tattoo of a starburst on her shoulder. While this could have been the best lead to finding her name, It wasn't, and they tried various means of identification. For a long time, this included searching tattoo parlors. Once they exhausted every option they could think of, they decided to approach Parabon Nanolabs. It was in March of 2022 that Parabon helped identify the Norman Jane Doe as Angela Mason. Angela grew up Angela Richards, and she was a member of the Cherokee Nation. She attended Putnam West High School, and she went on to marry twice, having 4 kids. Her family reports that she was last seen in Moore, Oklahoma, in the spring of 2008. Unfortunately, this was the extent of what was released. If anything comes out in the meantime, there'll be an editor's note that will show on the screen. I wish I knew what happened to her children. Hopefully they grew up with someone to love them. Angela Richards Mason went unidentified for 14 years. Angela was just 25 when her life was taken. If she had lived, she would be 39 today. That's it for today. Thank you so much to everybody commenting. Even with just an emoji, it really has made a big difference. The current goal for the channel is 20,000 subscribers, but we aren't even halfway there as I record this. So if you enjoy the content here and you're not sure, take a peek to see if you're subscribed. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves and each other.